What is up, class? It is Robert Marose here, and today I'm going to talk about my topic, which is granting more power of prisons to the federal government. Please excuse my cold. I sound very congested right now. Of course, this happens when I have to present a project, but it is what it is. We're going to get through it. So let's get this started. Objectives of my policy. Let me lay them all out for you. So, main objective is lowering our crime rate as a whole for society. This goes with the next two objectives. A constant issue society is being plagued with is that these offenders go to prison, serve their sentence, and then they come out returning their criminal ways. This is known as recidivism. I'll go over it a little bit more, but you have a basic understanding. So this goes into the second objective, which is help rehabilitate these offenders. You know, a criminal, when he goes to jail or prison, he leaves knowing nothing. He doesn't know anything else. In fact, it might even be worse because he may even meet other criminals who can teach him new tricks, as I say. And this is bad because once he leaves, he knows nothing else but criminal ways, rather than finishing his education or learning a trade where he doesn't have to live the criminal life anymore. So this goes into my third topic, our third objective, which is we can establish a program with companies that allow for them to hire low-risk offenders so they are given the opportunity to live an honest, crime-free life. And this is a huge problem for our society because the majority of crime happens to be from repeat offenders. So second to last, I'm all over the place today. We are looking to lower the chances of corruption within the justice system. And this is a huge, huge problem with private prisons because these individuals are simply there to make a dollar as opposed to actually serve the justice process. So my last objective is close private prisons. So moving on, I'll give you a little background. In the United States of America, the prison system is made up of federal, state, private prisons. Federal and state prisons run by the government. Private prisons run by private companies. The reason private prisons came about was the war on drugs, and prisons became overcrowded. Excuse me. And the war on drugs was led by the U.S. government, and it had to do with putting people away for minor issues. Uh, the biggest issue was people in possession of marijuana were being low amounts of marijuana were being sent to prison, and there wasn't enough space for all these people. Which now today, obviously, marijuana is decriminalized, so that's not the case. So how this whole system works is the government seek bids from private firms to operate a prison, jail, or detention center. This would be good if there was actually competition. There's no competition. There's two main companies that make up the private prison empire, and that is Core Civic and Geo Group. Both these companies have a very long list of corruption problems in their prisons, and I'm going to go over that a little bit more, but I'm just trying to give you guys a little taste so you can follow me along for this presentation. So, the main thing we have to ask ourselves is, should the justice system be something that's profitable? Now, when I saw this chart, I was actually disgusted because if you look at it, these private companies are making money off prisoners. They're literally making money, and this isn't money that is being put into paving your sidewalk, fixing a pothole, getting the George Washington Bridge redone. This is money that's going into the pockets of private individuals, corporations. This isn't money that's being used. So basically, the justice system is being used for money, and that is something that shouldn't, according to the Constitution, that shouldn't be a thing. Justice system should be something that's run by the government solely, and that's it. It shouldn't be used for a dollar. If anything, the money should be used to be put it back into society rather than someone getting a new BMW. It should be used for the people of society, and that's something that just really irks me. So moving on, big issue in private prison. I talked about this a little bit in the intro. Recidivism. Recidivism. It's a fundamental concept in criminal justice. It's a person's lapse in criminal behavior after receiving sanctions such as jail time for a previous crime. So basically, say a guy goes to prison for stealing. He goes into prison, serves his sentence, meets other thieves, and they teach him new tricks. If he doesn't learn anything besides stealing, how is he supposed to provide for himself down the line? You know, how is he supposed to maybe give his family money or provide food for himself to live? He's just going to go back to stealing, and that's something that prisons are starting to become a place where you just go for a couple years. It's not rehabilitation, and that's something I'm trying to change with this policy. So I got a little statistics for you. Um, 400,000 prisoners, 2005. It's a little old, but gets the point across. 30 states. So let's go over this. 404,000 prisoners. 3 years of being released. 2/3 of the prisoners were rearrested. 68%. 5 years, 76.6% were rearrested. The first year, half of those prisoners more than half were rearrested. So if you think about it, that's just the prisoners we tracked. That's 200,000 people going back to prison. 200,000 after their first year of being out because they have no other method of providing for themselves. And that's something that we need to fix because crime will just keep happening if we can't change these people. Now let's go into the issue with private prisons: corruption. Now this will really make you upset. Many of these private prisons have corrupt officers who don't stick to the justice system, and they try to take advantage. This is due to the fact that private prisons have underpaid and undertrained individuals as opposed to federal prisons, and this leads to huge turnover and job dissatisfaction. So what happens is, guy works at a private prison, hates it, quits. Those private prisons are not going to properly train an individual to come take his place just because they need him to take his place. They're just going to throw someone else in there. And then a report from the Justice Department found that private prisons had a 28% higher rate of inmate attacks on other inmates, more than twice as many inmate on staff assaults, and then double the amount of illegal weapons found in federal facilities. So clearly, those who are working in private prisons are not doing their job because there's double the amount of legal weapons, and these individuals aren't trained because there's more than twice as many inmate on staff assaults. So they're not trained to prevent these, and clearly the individuals in the prison don't take it seriously, including the prisoners, because they're just doing whatever they want. Another report was that a prison went without a full-time doctor for months, which was unreported on a report given to the government. This last thing, the Cash for Kids scandal. This is absolutely disgusting. Terrible. Cash for Kids scandal. So there were two judges in the South that were found accepting money from the owner of private juvenile detention facilities. In return, the judge would send juvenile offenders to those facilities. Keep in mind, these kids, first of all, they were accepting money to send kids to juvie. That's disgusting. I'm just going to be honest. That is disgusting. Keep in mind also these crimes these juveniles were committing. It wasn't like they were committing grand theft auto or stuff like that. They were shoplifting or they were tagging things. Obviously, what they did isn't right, but to send a 15-year-old kid to juvie because he stole a pair of sneakers, he's just going to come out going more back into crime. We could rehabilitate this kid and teach him that crime's not the method rather than have to put him through that. And to keep in mind, this judge is making money off that. And so was the owner of the juvenile detention facility because he keeps wanting more kids to send there so he can make money off them. So why should we give more power to the federal government? Basically, we can establish a program that allows for them to companies to hire low-risk offenders. You know, I'm not saying these people need to be bankers. I'm not saying they need to be accountants. I'm not saying they need to be the CEO of a company. I'm just saying we can give them a job where they can make an honest living and provide for themselves, and that's one of the companies ARC is. ARC's one of the companies that, one of the organizations that helps that helps companies get with that helps companies work with these low risk offenders to give them jobs. And this is a company that should be boasted more in prisons because they're trying to help make the world a better place. Another thing is, it's actually cheaper to house individuals in public prisons rather than a private prison. Granted, it's not that much, but if you think about how many prisoners, that money will add up. And another thing is, those working in the public prisons receive adequate pay and training, so their turnover rates are lower, and the employees like their jobs because they're getting paid well, and they're less likely to be corrupt because they're making a solid living. Why would they want to give that up? And that's something we really need to emphasize here. So issues, money. That's always the issue. Obviously, this is an expensive policy. We want to close private prisons. We want to establish a better program, and we need to make more federal prisons. So it's expensive. It's definitely going to be expensive. And the fact that it's going to cost the taxpayers more. We have to build new federal prisons or redo private prisons and make them federal prisons, and then we have to hire a bunch of staff as well as train them. So this is one of those things where excuse me, sorry, the phone rang. So as I was saying, constructing new prisons. Just turn it off. There we go. I apologize for that. So we need to construct these new prisons as well as train and hire this new staff. So this is costly and it's going to cost the taxpayers money, but all in all, it's an investment to our future. So show me the budget. Show me the money, the budget. So the average cost of housing an inmate in a public prison was $48.42, and there are 130,000, roughly 130,000 individuals in private prisons. So we multiply the cost, we're at $6,200,810.45. So with this, we need to include the cost of constructing more public prisons, which are roughly $100 million per institution. A prison can hold 14,000 individuals, therefore we would need 10 to account for these private prisons, where we're at a total of $1,006,200,810.45. And then right now there are currently 102 federal prisons, and then with the addition of 10 more, we are at 112. Now, if we incorporate $1 million per prison based on the programs in these 12 prisons, we have if we include $1 million for 112 prisons, we have another 112 million, leaving us at $1,118,200,810.45. So that's a little number to say, and that's a very expensive number. However, we need to look at this as an investment to our future and to make society a lower crime rate. And this is also a one-time thing to build all these jails. It's not a constant thing we're going to have to pay for. So moving on, timeline. It's not an overnight process. So year one, slowly end private prison privatization by shutting down private prisons one at a time. And then we can start incorporating programs that allow prisoners to earn their GED or trade programs. Year two, continue the process of shutting down private prisons and also check on rehabilitated offenders at their first year of being released and determine if they found jobs and keep a good work performance. Year three, hopefully we can complete the end to the privatization of prisons, and then continue to check up on offenders and look at the crime rate as a whole and see if there's a lower crime rate amongst previous offenders. Conclusion, wrap up. All in all, I think the federal government should be in charge of prisons. I think the main concern of this policy is to reduce recidivism. Even though it's a higher cost, I think it's a great investment to our future. And I think this should also be explained to taxpayers so they have an understanding of what their money is being used for, and then why this policy is important to me. In August, I'm going to the New York City Corrections Academy. Um, I'm hoping that I can make a difference and help rehabilitate these offenders rather than just let them go out and continue to live their criminal life. And I feel like this is an attitude that those people who work in prisons should have. So that's why this is important to me. That is why I chose this topic. And I think we need to do our part to help make everything a better place, including helping those in prison. Despite what they may have done, we can rehabilitate them and we could help make the future better. There's my citations. Thank you very much for your time.